I'm Steve Jones, and welcome to the Blue White Tailgate Show presented by Rich Coats Coffee. And yes, indeed, it's a new season. It's a new show. New co-host Todd Sadowski. Welcome, my friend.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Same old Phil Grosz.
Same old, right?
So we get into the new season. It is great to get rolling on 2013. And we go right off the bat with sounding off with Bill O'Brien, presented by the Family Clothesline. Bill O'Brien on season number 2.
Last year is last year, you know, and this is a new year, and hopefully, personally, I've done enough in the off season to really study what we do and how we practice and how we lift weights and how we condition and how I call plays and, you know, what we're doing on defense and how to improve special teams, and hopefully you see some improvement.
And that's something people have to understand, Todd. Yeah. Every team has its own personality. There's carryover in that the veterans know the system, but every team has its own personality.
Well, in the media, we always love to say, compare last year's team to this year's team. And Coach O'Brien was very quick, and he always says, this is this year's team, that was last year's team. So, and I like that he was pointed about what he's tried to learn in year 2 as well, because he's different as well as the players are. So I think that's something that you got to remember with the coach. They're always trying to learn too. This is only his second year as a head coach, and he talked about some of the things that were different. The players know the system. They know the expectations, which are don't be late, embrace your role, no matter how small that may be, correct?
Phil, what do you see as this team's personality?
I see it as a real emotional football team. I was surprised. Everyone thought when Matt McGloin, Michael Morty, and maybe Gerald Hodges and Jordan Hall would be leaving. And I think it's you're going to be really surprised with the personality and the excitement that's going to be on this football team.
And of course, the key losses from last season. Every team has losses this time of the year they have to make up for. Penn State's key losses are obvious: McGloin, Motti, Hodges, Stankiewicz, Morris, and Jordan Hill. Now, McGloin's there at the top, which brings us to the quarterback battle. We know it exists. Todd.
Yes, Tyler Ferguson, Christian Hackenberg. Who's starting? We don't know. We'll find out a little bit later. But what I like about it is these are O'Brien's guys. This is his pedigree, and if you don't think he doesn't have a pedigree with him that comes with it, Ferguson came all the way from Bakersfield, California. He's come all the way across the country to play for Bill O'Brien. Christian Hackenberg, of course, the blue chip, hopefully the can't-miss prospect. But these are the guys that he wants, and he's going to see what they can do.
And we'll get your take on the quarterbacks a little bit later, Phil. It's back to the Meadowlands for Penn State as well. Played there many times, but actually the first time in MetLife Stadium. When you look at what they've done in the Meadowlands in the past, they've had great success when they played there, Phil.
Yeah, and the kickoff classic, I remember against Georgia Tech, where they really kind of dominated that football game. And it's been a good place for Penn State to play over the years, especially when they play teams like Rutgers and other teams like that during the regular season.
And, of course, playing in an NFL stadium is something Bill O'Brien absolutely embraces.
Playing at MetLife Stadium means a lot to our fans. We have close to 40,000 alums in that area. We've got 12 guys on our team from that area, from Jersey. I think it's just fantastic for Penn State fans. I'm hearing that it's not a sellout. I'm not in charge of selling tickets, but I would hope that would be close to a sellout by Saturday, because I think it's a traditional game too. Penn State Syracuse, I believe, have met close to 70 times, and so it's a traditional rivalry that hasn't been played in a little bit.
In fact, let's take a look at that rivalry between the two. Syracuse and Penn State do have a storied history between one another. As you can see how many times they've met. Haven't met, though, since 2009 when Syracuse was down. And that brings us now to, upon further review, Fran Fisher looking back at the great games between the Nittany Lions and the Orange.
Memories of past Penn State-Syracuse football confrontations are being refreshed. As seasoned Penn State football fans look forward to this season's opener, there's plenty to remember, like the 20-18 Ernie Davis-led Syracuse win in 1959 in one of the better games ever played at Beaver Stadium. The 1969 game when the Nittany Lions cruised into Syracuse with a 24-game non-losing streak. With Penn State trailing 14-zip as the fourth quarter began, something had to be done to preserve the streak. And the Chuck Burkhardt-Franco Harris pass-catch combination was the something, setting up 2 touchdowns. A successful 2-point conversion effort saved the day as the Nittany Lions win it 15-14. The 1977 game is one I'll never forget, with the Penn State team in Syracuse, and Coach Joe Paterno went State College, with his wife Sue praying for son David's recovery from a life-threatening accident. And recover he did, as the Paterno prayers and those of thousands of Paterno admirers were answered. This is Fran Fisher for Upon Further Review.
Absolutely a great addition to our show to hear the voice of Fran Fisher on here once again. There's a quarterback competition. Have you heard that? Phil, Todd, and I will come back and talk about that in a moment as we continue on Blue White Tailgate, presented by Rich Coast Coffee.
I feel like what I try to do every week along with our staff is do what's best for our football team. And so right now, you'll find out who the quarterback is on the first play of the game against Syracuse.
In the previous segment, by the way, I asked Todd about the quarterback battle and said we'd get Phil's take later. Phil later has arrived.
You know, I think the most important thing that I liked about the competition was the competition that took place between the quarterbacks. It made both Hackenberg and Tyler Ferguson better, and I think that was really important, being that they're so young into the system and into the way that O'Brien wants to run his offense.
Let's take a look at the Tyler Ferguson numbers and what he did at college of the Sequoias. And really, Todd, good, but he has an interesting history.
He does, and you look at it, and it's pretty solid. You got 199 completions, 22 touchdowns, and you know he doesn't have prolific numbers from his high school days. He broke his collarbone his senior year, was 6-0 before that happened, had about 1,200 yards passing, 10 touchdowns. You look at a really highly rated recruit, maybe they come from a passing system, but I think there's some intangibles with Tyler Ferguson that Coach O'Brien likes. Leadership qualities, obviously arm strength, and I think there's some things that people, once he starts to introduce himself to everyone, are going to be really impressed with this guy.
Now let's take the other side. Let's take a look at the numbers of Christian Hackenberg. You'll be surprised. They look remarkably similar. Phil, you looked at a lot of tape of him in high school, so what do you see?
He understands the game of football, first of all. He's smart. He's really intelligent. Hits the films hard, but athletically, he has a gun for an arm. The only thing that I think that he has to be concerned about is he tends to trust his arm too much, and sometimes he tries to force the football. But that will come. O'Brien and Charlie Fisher will work that out, but he's as good as any quarterback I've seen come into Penn State, and he deserved his 5-star rating.
And not only that, on top of it, something that's a little underrated about him, I think his footwork in the pocket is really good for a young player, and he really buys himself an extra second that he needs because of his footwork. So I'll stay out of this because I have the huge responsibility of identifying the difference between a 14 and a 5 on the first play of the game. So who starts?
I think Christian Hackenberg starts in the football game, but that doesn't mean I don't expect Tyler Ferguson to get some action. I think he wants both guys to get into the scheme of things, get a feel for how the game's played, the speed of the game, and I expect both Ferguson and Hackenberg to play in the first half of this football game with Hackenberg starting.
Todd, your take.
Yeah, the timing of the decision is really interesting for two reasons. One, he's got teenagers, 19 years old, 18 years old, didn't want to go out and say, this guy did beat out this guy. We're going to play. And I think it speaks to the fact that he wants to play both guys. But I do agree with Phil that Hackenberg will probably get that first snap under center. It's just hard to imagine this guy holding the clipboard for a lot of minutes. He's going to see some time out there for sure. But I do expect to see plenty of Tyler Ferguson. Maybe he goes with the hot hand. Who knows? But part of this is that he doesn't want to tip his hand to Syracuse and let them know who's going to take that first snap.
Whomever is the starting quarterback will have a veteran cast around them. And Todd, part of that veteran cast is an offensive line that you had a chance to really get to know.
Yeah, we saw the key losses full screen a little bit earlier, and a lot of those guys were defensive-minded or were the defensive captains. And so Phil talked about the personality of this team, and if it takes the image or the personality of the offensive line, it is going to be a fun group. Had a chance to talk to them, and their senior leader is John Urschel, and these guys couldn't stop laughing as John tried to introduce the entire group to me.
Get it wrong. It's fun, funny, fun-loving.
Fun, funny, fun-loving. We've got some great offensive linemen. Played a lot of football. We have Adam Grosz over here. He's our right tackle.
Best hair on the team.
Second best.
And the best hair is
Ty Howe, who's our center.
All right.
Great offensive lineman. He brings a lot of leadership.
Makes great marmalade.
We've established the great hair and homemade marmalade on the right. Well, the most unique character is sitting to John's left.
To the left, we have Miles Diffenbach, who's our left guard.
Yep.
Babyface. Just look at that beautiful
Babyface killer.
babyface killer over here.
Silent but deadly.
Coach said he has a future on Saturday Night Live potentially. Is that?
It's in the works.
It's in the works.
We're working on it.
We're working on it. Just trying to help you guys out.
Despite all the hijinks off the field, their work between the white lines is no joke. Penn State led the Big Ten in total offense with 437 yards per game.
They're out there joking, cracking jokes right now, you can hear. But they're a great group of guys. You know, they come out, they work hard, and you know, as running backs, we owe a lot of our success to them, because without them, we wouldn't be able to go anywhere.
One Nittany Lion joins the O-line by request. Former tight end Gary Gilliam suggested the switch to Coach O'Brien. He'll do anything to help the team.
I mean, regardless of where I'm at, as long as I'm on the field contributing to the team and helping us win games, I don't care where it's at, whether it's left tackle, right tackle, center, defensive tackle, quarterback, or whatever. I do it all.
He's played a lot of football here at Penn State, especially last year, so we're expecting him to come in there and help us. They're very high character guys and tough guys, smart, they communicate well, that are doing a nice job.
And if you are going to have two young quarterbacks, isn't it nice to have an experienced group of offensive linemen to protect them? And if they get in a tense, tight situation, I think there's one or two guys in there that'll lighten the mood in the huddle.
They'll need that from time to time, without a doubt, in some of those tough situations. Tight end is a spot, Phil. Last year, Bill O'Brien's use of the tight end really dramatically changed the look of how Penn State plays offense.
I think it's the #1 tight end class in the country. There's no question about that. I think Jesse James, 6'7", 257, sub 4.7. He's going to be a first-round NFL draft pick and eventually down the line. And Kyle Carter came out of nowhere. Exceptional football player. Mackey Award nominee. This is the best group of tight ends, now that Stanford lost their guys, in the country coming back for the 2013 season.
Yeah, let's take a look at those Kyle Carter numbers. He's on the Mackey Award watch list, and people forget down the stretch, when he went out, that was a big loss last year. And now you have Adam Brenneman and Matt Lehman to go with him. Now let's take it outside, and Todd, the wide receiver group, any quarterback I think would love to have, especially number 8.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, Allen Robinson, we talk about the tight ends, you know, and everybody talks about O'Brien's system being tight end based, but in 1 year, a wide receiver broke the school record for receptions in a season, 77 for Allen Robinson, 63 the old mark. So to have his size, to have his ability, the big playability, a lot of weapons for the quarterbacks to go to, for sure.
Yeah, and they're more than just Robinson.
Oh, yeah, you got a Felder who's 6'2", 200. Even Matt Zaniletto goes 6'3", 203. And then you got Eugene Lewis, a kid that looked great as a redshirt freshman on the Dirty Squad, you know, everything, who goes about 6'1", 201. They will create mismatch problems just like the tight ends.
They have depth at tailback with Akeel Lynch and Bill Belton. But then there's Zach Zwinak, a 1,000-yard rusher last year. He didn't play the first 2.5 games. And Glenn Carson said in practice, this is one tough guy to tackle.
He's a load. He's a big guy. He runs behind his pads, and he's definitely a tough physical player. So it's fun playing against him. He's competitive, and he works hard, and it's actually good because he's kind of built like 45 from Syracuse. So it's good to have him practice the way he does. And you know, for me, I enjoy it. Middle linebacker, I like when a running back likes to try to run you over. I like that challenge, so it's been fun.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it's fun to have that kind of challenge. Yeah, sure. Okay, players to watch this year. A player to watch.
I really think that the player to watch, I think they need real balance in the offensive attack. I think you're going to see a guy named Akeel Lynch come through and surprise some people and help to bring that balance and maybe bring the big play potential to the running game on offense.
Player to watch.
Well, skilled players obviously were loaded. I'm going to do a position to watch. I'm going to cheat a little bit because he hasn't named a starter, Adam Grosz or Gary Gilliam at right tackle. And the reason is you have two right-handed quarterbacks. They can't see their blind side. They can see in front of them. If the right tackle does their job and keeps the pressure off them, it's going to give them that extra half second or second to make a decision and make a wiser decision than to rush a young quarterback.
Now, we always do the drive of the week here presented by Stocker Chevrolet, but since it's the opening game, we'll go to the drive of last season. And Todd, your drive of the last season was?
Wisconsin, right? End of the game. They pull it out in the end. What an emotional game and victory for that group.
Can't be anything else. 41-yard touchdown reception by Jesse James on 4th down to win the game.
Which, by the way, was the fourth down touchdown Penn State scored last season. Our drive of the season. Coming up, Take a closer look as we continue on Blue White Tailgate presented by Rich Grosz Coffee after this. I'm working with two rather offensive guys, but we're going to go defensive this time, okay? So we're going to go that direction. Penn State in the 2000s had great defenses, statistically outstanding. Ted Roof came in last year, that 2012 defense, look at the numbers here. The 2012 defense, just outstanding again. And now, really a lot of the same cast, but there are going to be some changes this time around, Todd.
Yeah, and I think the first issue that you bring up is depth. I mean, for both the defensive line, also for the linebackers. And so we'll see. Obviously, the change with John Butler, we're going to see what he's going to do with the defensive units. But these guys have got to stay healthy. We'll talk about health a little bit later. And guys have got to step up into different roles. Kyle Balblitz, you know, this is a big kid, big, strong kid. And these guys in the middle, they can't be moved. They're going to have to stand their ground.
You know, the two cornerbacks are young, some new people. They're going to play a little bit more man-to-man coverage. I see that as something I'm going to watch for very early in the season. But I'll tell you, I think losing Jordan Hill is going to be the biggest thing. I think DeQuan Jones and Kyle Balblitz and maybe a guy named Austin Johnson, they really have to come through for this defense to play well.
John Butler really was in charge of special teams. He'd been a coordinator of special teams at South Carolina. Now he becomes the defensive coordinator. John Stroh with a closer look at the new man in charge of the Penn State defense.
The Penn State defense has suffered some significant losses from last season. Gone are the likes of Jordan Hill, Mike Motti, Gerald Hodges, and defensive coordinator Ted Roof, who returned to his alma mater, Georgia Tech. Penn State expects to have competent replacements for all, including John Butler, who assumes command of the defense. Head coach Bill O'Brien has high praise for his new defensive coordinator.
He's done an excellent job. He's one of the best coaches I've ever been around. He's a quick-minded guy. He's tough. The kids really respect him. He's a great communicator. It's a competitive practice because he and I are very competitive people, and you know, so it's been a great thing for our program. He's an excellent coach with obviously a very bright future.
In terms of defensive scheme, Nittany Lion fans may see little difference according to junior linebacker Mike Hall, who will be responsible for filling one of the two holes at linebacker.
Yeah, it's you know, it's not too much different. He was under Coach Roof for quite a few years, so you know, he's keeping the scheme pretty much the same, and it's been a smooth transition.
What will make Nittany Lion fans sit up and take notice? His trademark intensity, according to freshman linebacker Naeem Wortman.
He's intense. He doesn't care. He wants the best out of you. He wants you firing to the ball. The ball is thrown all the way across the field. You better start sprinting down. Like, he wants to swarm to the ball. He wants 11 years at the ball, every frame, every film frame, every time. He just wants us to be the best we possibly be because we know if we're doing good, the offense is going to do good because good complementary football, defense do good, offense is going to bound to do good because we're getting them good field position.
And senior safety Malcolm Willis echoes those sentiments.
He's never satisfied. You know, even if you have a great day at practice, if you have 2 interceptions and 2 forced fumbles, he's never satisfied. Go get three interceptions the next time. You know, he always wants his players to be the best that they can be every day.
With this team's defensive talent and Butler's intensity fueling them, this could easily be one of the best defenses in the Big Ten. For the Blue White Tailgate Show, I'm John Stroh.
Phil, linebacker thin, but the front line, a lot of people would love to have.
I'm telling you, Mike Hall, I think he's the next great Penn State linebacker. He always seems to be around the ball, and he has big play capability. Carson, he's consistent, and I think he's going to end up playing in the NFL. But the kid I'm really anxious to see is Naeem Wortman. He's 240 pounds. He can play from sideline to sideline. He seems to be totally aggressive, and he seems to have, I couldn't believe it when Bill O'Brien talked about leadership skills that are needed on the football team. He brought his name up, and I can't ever remember a redshirt freshman before being mentioned as a leader on a football team.
Yeah, well, Carson's made the big improvement that can get him to the next levels. In fact, he's become better in pass coverage. Right. That's a big part because as a run stopper, there's no question he can do that. Getting Ben Klein back helps the depth there. Now let's go defensive line, Todd. And up front defensive line, Daquan Jones may be the guy that takes the baton from Jordan Hill, and then Deion Barnes on the outside or something.
Yeah, these guys, yeah, they're going to be coming in hard on the offensive line, and they're going to be tough to move. There's some big guys, strong guys. Not a lot of, you mentioned Kyle Baldwin's to me, the 2.1% body fat. Only. These are hard guys to move, and Deion Barnes certainly made a big impression right away. So the offense is going to be keen on him. They know he's coming around the end, and these guys are going to work together well as a unit. Hopefully they can just all stay on the field together.
Depth provided, Phil, by Austin Johnson. Another guy that a lot of people don't talk about is C.J. Olanian.
Yeah, in fact, he had a great spring practice session, won the Jim O'Hore Award co-recipient along with Jordan Lucas, the sophomore cornerback. But he's got good size, he's got good, quick first step off the football, and he can help, I think, bring an outside pass rush to help to take some of the pressure off of Deion Barnes.
Right, let's go to the secondary, because a year ago, as well, we weren't sitting in these comfy chairs from Aaron's, but a year ago when we discussed this on this set, it would be labeled the preseason weakness, the secondary. It turned out to be a strength, and that's, I think John Butler did a great job with this group. So Todd, let's look at that secondary. Let's start with the safeties, because safety appears to be a strength, especially with Adrian Amos moving.
Yeah, what you like to see is when he can't name a starter, right? That means you got great competition there, and that's the way it is on some offensive positions as well. So you got Adrian Amos, who seems to have that position locked up, but then you got Kaiser and Willis fighting for a spot as the other safety. What I like about the secondary is the size. So you got 6'1" corners. There's no one except for Malcolm Willis that's listed under 6 foot. He's 5'11". So you got a big secondary that can get physical with the wide receivers if they need to.
It's a smart group. Willis and Kaiser in particular, very smart. And then you have, as you mentioned, Adrian Amos, Todd did, then there's Stephen Obeng-Archibong.
Obeng, if they're going to play some 4-2-5 because of the lack of depth at the linebacker position, and Obeng-Archibong and Amos fit that bill perfectly. They're both physical football players. Todd talked about the size. Amos is 210, Obeng is about 207 pounds.
And the corners, Trevor Williams made the move from wide out, Jordan Lucas, Daquan Davis, another guy to look for as well. So let's go. Your player to watch on defense is?
I think the cornerbacks. I love the point that Todd made about their size, and I think people are going to test them early because they're going to see they're completely new with lack of experience, especially with Trevor Williams moving over from wide receiver.
I'm going to sound like a broken record, but I'm really looking at Kyle Ballblitz as the defensive tackle, because if he's vulnerable in the middle, they're going to come at him. If he can hold his ground, it's really going to help everybody else.
Coming up, when Blue White Tailgate presented by Rich Coats Coffee continues, Phil and Todd take a look at recruiting.
We're back on the Blue White Tailgate, and the meaty portion of the show for Phil Grosz. He's been waiting for the recruiting breakdown, sponsored by Central PA Dock and Door. I'm the softball pitcher, slow pitch. I'm going to lob him up, and you just take a swing at him, okay? We're going to go through topic after topic right here. We'll start with scholarship limitations. Maybe a lot of viewers, Phil, that don't understand the parameters that Penn State's working under. Break that down for me.
Penn State's got to be very careful, because by 2014, they have to be down to 65 scholarships total on their football team because of the NCAA sanctions. That's why they've already gotten down to 66. Some people got concerned when they gave 5 run-on scholarships for the 2013 season. They're only for 1 year. Starting in 2014, that changes.
So no big deal. That was a reward for those guys, right? Okay, impact freshmen, some guys that may see some action handling the ball, Von Walker and Richie Anderson Jr.
Von Walker's the biggest surprise because he's a run-on. Had a great year at Central Mountain. Physically, he's ready to go. I think he'll be good on special teams. He's 6 foot, about 199 pounds, has legitimate 4.5 speed. And also, I like the fact he's on the depth chart at kickoff return. I don't like seeing Belton and Akeel Lynch, who are big-time players, doing that job.
Richie Anderson Jr. right behind him.
He came in January. His dad played here, was a running back. Biggest surprise, he's like a slot wide receiver. He got good hands, really impressed the coaches. When he go 3 wide receiver set, he'll play.
depth an issue at linebacker, so that's why Brandon Bell could be an impact player.
He's second at one team on the depth chart behind Naeem Wortman, and he's third behind Mike Hall at the other outside linebacker. We'll see him play as the season goes along. They might want to redshirt him.
And then Andrew Nelson, we talked about him. Hershey kid, making an impact right away and impressing Coach O'Brien.
You know, if Donovan Smith gets nicked, I wouldn't be surprised to see Andrew Nelson come in there. Physically, he's ready to go. 6'5", almost 300 pounds. Maybe the most underrated member of Penn State's class of 2013.
All right, so I feels the best. The meaty portion of the show. I know you were waiting for it. We want to keep you healthy. Take a breath. We're going to show how the Penn State Nittany Lions are staying healthy. It's one of the keys to this team. We take you behind the scenes to see how they're going to keep the guys on the field.
Penn State has around 70 scholarship players this season, and while they are talented, it leaves one glaring problem: depth. One injury at one key position could mean the wheels coming off for the season. To find out how the staff is keeping the players healthy, I caught up with head trainer Tim Breen. And to my surprise, the root of the treatment starts with the players.
The biggest thing that we do, and it's in conjunction with Coach Fitz, is we try to stay on them for nutrition. About their nutrition, about their eating habits, about hydration, about fluid. I think that's the biggest thing we can do. It's so often understated, and especially with this age group, making sure they're getting the proper amount of calories, specifically carbohydrates, amount of fluid. So we're on them constantly about that.
With early morning workouts and lifts, it's easy to find tired players. Those players might look for a quick pick-me-up in the form of energy drinks. But that's a no-no to Bream and his staff.
Caffeine's a diuretic, so it robs the cells of fluid, so it actually does more harm than it does good. And they know, so from the time they walk in the morning, we're hitting them with the Gatorade products, we're hitting them with water, we're hitting them with carbohydrates. We teach them they got to be fueled before they get there, continually all day long. We try to tell them not, stay away from coffee, soda, those type of things. Energy drinks is more voodoo for them as far as performance and injury prevention than it is really it's going to help them.
Those injuries Penn State is trying to avoid are strains, pulls, and tears, which are common with dehydration. Of course, these do occur, and coaches have to make adjustments to their practices, something Bream said O'Brien is pretty good at.
Coach O'Brien is awesome. He understands those type of things. He understands where the roster is. He bounces things off of Fitz and I, but he's pretty smart. He's very intuitive, and he knows all those things already before I think he just uses Fitz and I to reinforce his knowledge of what he's acquired over the years and his experience.
Bream, along with Coach Fitz, may be the most important people on the staff to the players, and Bream knows his knowledge of every player is vital for a successful season.
In tune to everybody's position, all the players and what they need, and and if we need to back down, we back down. So everybody's aware of where we are with the roster and what our guys need to do. So we get to the gate ready to go, and just win the day every day. Win the day every day, so they're ready to go. When we start the season.
Coach O'Brien and the staff have done a great job during camp, keeping the players free from nagging injuries. It appears everyone on the 2 deep is good to go this week. For the Blue White Tailgate Show, I'm Andrew Callista.
All right, thanks a lot, Andrew. Let's take a look at the Health South injury update. And Phil, you were saying Craig Fitzgerald's one of the best. Here's some of the guys that we're not going to be able to see, and some that, like Ben Klein, that will be in there day to day.
Well, it's good Ben Klein getting healthy. He's going on a special harness for his shoulder. And I think the big loss there is probably Brent Wilkerson and Brad Bars. Wilkerson looked good at the tight end. He had some surgery, and Bars has lost the season with the Achilles injury.
Yeah, and these guys, we just saw that Andrew showed us. There's a real science to this. These guys, their bodies look a little different when they're out there on the field, don't they?
Listen, I agree with you. He is the best strength and conditioning coach guy in the country. You see a dimension and a physique to players you've never seen before here at Penn State.
You know who's going to see him now? That's Syracuse. And we're going to break down the orange when we come back. Take a closer look at Syracuse when Blue White Tailgate returns.
Welcome back to the Blue White Tailgate Show, presented by Rich Coast Coffee. It's great to have you with us. Steve Jones, Todd Sadowski, Phil Grosz, the group back together again after Phil broke down recruiting. All right, so let's get to Syracuse. Scott Schaefer is the new head coach. Doug Marone's now with the Buffalo Bills. He has his own set of problems, okay, to take care of there. Phil, Scott Schaefer, when it's a new coach, it's a new way of doing things.
Yeah, but I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of change. He was a defensive coordinator last year. Defensively, they were very good. And they got some important people back, like their linebackers, Sproul and Dyshawn Davis are really two very good players. Offensively, I don't think he's going to make many changes either. So I don't think you're going to see a big difference. They're going to depend on the run. So it'll be a lot of the same old that you saw last year when it's successful.
Scott Schaefer, here's the file on him. We dialed it up, and as you can see, 29th head coach. And Phil, of course, correct earlier. He was saying he was Michigan's defensive coordinator in 2008. Penn State remembers that. That went well that day for the Nittany Lions. And for Bill O'Brien, he was in this spot last year. He was the rookie coach they had to prepare for. Now he's preparing for a rookie head coach.
You know, he was on the staff, so, you know, we can watch. He was the defensive coordinator, so we can watch a lot of what they did there. And then we look at some things from maybe where some certain staff members came from and things like that. But you're right. I mean, you can't really totally pinpoint and put all your eggs in one basket.
Okay, now the quarterback thing is different. They're different styles. So, Phil, I want to have you do that. Then, Todd, I'll have you take the running backs. We're going to go Hunt, Allen. They're distinctive styles.
Hunt's more of an option. You see freeze option, that type of option quarterback. He's a big kid, goes about 6'3", 220. He still has some things to work out with the passing game and the mechanics. You know, Allen, coming from Oklahoma, he comes from a pro-style offense. And you know, not to say he isn't a great quarterback, but there's a reason. But he was behind Landry Jones for 4 years, only threw one pass. He's got good size, has a good arm. But I think, you know, in the game on Saturday, I think they're going to start out with Hunt. But I think this will be a lot like Penn State. I think both quarterbacks are going to see some action on Saturday.
There's no doubt. It's a two-headed monster right there, without a doubt, when you look at Syracuse. And that two-headed monster is at running back. You look at those two there, they combine for almost, Todd, 2,000 yards. And one's a little quicker than the other. Smith's power and go, he can take it to the outside.
Well, and whoever they do decide to play at quarterback is going to do a lot of handing off, aren't they? I think they're going to call a lot of run plays. And you don't necessarily think of Syracuse as an offensive team, but they averaged 189 yards on the ground last year, or close to that, 289 in the air. They actually had more yards in total offense per game than did Penn State. And those two running backs, Jerome Smith, he's the workhorse, over 1,000 yards, but Prince Tyson Goalie, besides being a member of the all-name team, Prince Tyson Goalie, this guy can really fly. 158 carries, 830 yards. So, you know, you may mention that change of pace. Well, that pace is awfully quick when he gets in the game. So, you know, for a defensive line that could be depth challenge, or a defense that could be depth challenge, if they keep pounding them with two different guys, it could be a long day if these guys are doing what they can do for Syracuse.
And Bill O'Brien knows that really has to be the point of emphasis for the defense.
Because this is Penn State. This is the history of Penn State says, number one is, you know, we're going to play as tough a defense as we can, and we're going to try to stop the run, and that's the way it goes. But that's, to me, that's good defenses all over the place say the same thing. It's especially true with Syracuse because their two running backs are really, really good players. Tough guys, strong guys. They can run. They catch the ball well, and the Syracuse does a real nice job with those two guys. So, you know, it's going to be a tough chore.
No doubt. And the wideouts that they have to throw to are not bad. Jared West had 43 catches last year. Adrian Fleming is a guy that they have transitioned in there. They like a lot. The tight end, Beckett Wales, they love to use him around the goal line. Now let's go to the defense. And on defense, Jay Bromley is the guy, and Miles Diefenbach is the guy that's going to probably be matched up on him most of the day.
They're really good. I mean, number 96, Bromley is a really big guy. He's a run stuffer. He's good in the pass game, and their ends are good. And, you know, I think they're a little young except for Bromley on the line, but yeah, they definitely bring some power and some size that we're going to have to deal with. I mean, they're a good group of players. It's a good defense.
The focal point of their defense last year was a guy who's really good, Shamarko Thomas. not there. That changes a lot of things as to how they play.
You know, a lot of people think they have 3 guys back in the secondary. Shamarko Thomas right now, I think isn't he challenging for a starting job with the Pittsburgh Steelers? So that was a major, major loss. Even though they got 3 guys back and their cornerbacks got size, you know, the 2 guys, Lynn and Anderson, I think that is a real big loss for their football team.
Because this is a guy, Todd, that last year, I mean, we talk about how Adrian Amos plays. This is how this guy plays. I mean, Thomas was a guy that was part linebacker, part safety. He made up for a lot of mistakes.
Well, anybody that's going out for a pass, if you've got somebody in the back of your head knowing that they could be coming your way, I mean, you're thinking about it for sure, and that helps every part of the defense in front of you. And speaking of the defense in front of them, this is a team that likes to get to the backfield, 6th in the country in tackles for losses. So Coach Schaefer, he's moving from defense to the head coach, but that philosophy is not going to change. They're going to do things to try and get in your backfield and get you behind the line of scrimmage.
And that's a big part of this. How many negative plays can they create? Syracuse's defense created a lot of negative plays. And what's really hard about this team to get ready for is that Ryan Nassib was such a focal point of the offense last year. That's what your tape is, not of Hunt and Allen, and they're 2 distinctly different styles at quarterbacks. Coming up, Rick Pizzo sits down and talks with Todd as we continue on Blue White Tailgate presented by Rich Coast Coffee after this.
We are back on the Blue White Tailgate, and we have a special guest with us. It's Rick Pizzo of the Big Ten Network. And Rick, the offseason is behind us. We can finally talk about some football games, and we're talking about Penn State, Syracuse at MetLife Stadium. Let's get right to it. Bated breath. Who do you think is going to be under center for that first snap?
I think it's going to be Hackenberg. I mean, there's just no difference in experience, so I think you have to go with the more talented guy. Bill O'Brien is really keeping his cards close to his vest, not just the quarterback position, but he didn't name a couple of starters on offensive line. He went either or, same thing in the defensive backfield. I think it's going to be Hackenberg. I think he has a little bit more physical capability, though I will say that if it seems like one guy mentally has more of a grasp of O'Brien's offense than the other, that will trump pure athletic skill, because we saw that from McGloin last year. Matt, not the most talented guy in the world, but he understood Bill's offense, and that will be the biggest key for whoever takes the most snaps under center for Penn State.
Yeah, and once you understand the offense, you understand there's a lot of weapons around you. How impressed are you with the tight end group specifically? And, of course, you got Allen Robinson as a wideout as well to go to.
Yeah, you have some terrific tight ends. I mean, Lehman showed last year that he is a really good ball catcher, not just a blocker. Allen Robinson, one of the mismatched nightmares. I mean, cover corners that have to go one-on-one with this guy who has skill, who has speed, and who also flourished last year in an offense that didn't send him down the field a lot. A lot of yards for him after catch. He's big enough, he's strong enough, and he's fast enough to pick up that yardage. And then you look at the running backs. I mean, Zach Zwinak may have had the quietest 1,000-yard season in history. He did exactly 1,000 yards, basically in 8.5 games. Bill O'Brien joked he didn't do a very good job of coaching last year in the beginning because he didn't get Zach really into action until conference play. So expect him to get a lot more carries and expect Robinson and those tight ends to be utilized a lot. Bill is going to try to ease these quarterbacks in with a lot of that short, quick passing game.
Now let's switch to the other side of the ball, and everybody's just holding their breath that the injury bug doesn't bite on the defensive line. A lot of skill over there, a lot of talent, but not that much depth.
No doubt about it, and they are going to miss Jordan Hill. I mean, he was one of those guys who you could plug at a couple of different positions, whether you wanted to play him more as a tackle, more as an end. He could rush the passer. He could stop the rush. Now, I understand that Mike Maudie was the emotional leader, but I think they're going to be okay at linebacker, maybe even better than okay with guys like Carson and Hull. How good will Deion Barnes be? Will he be able to come back as a sophomore, not have that kind of sophomore slump, and help anchor that line? That's going to be key down the road, but especially against Syracuse, because this is a Syracuse team who had 2 running backs last year that combined for almost 2,000 yards, and both those guys are back with the Orange this year.
So 8-4 in his first season. Coach O'Brien said he's even better this second year. You try to be better every single year. What do you think this team is going to accomplish this year? What do you like about Coach O'Brien and maybe his approach heading into year 2, Rick?
I mean, if they match that, if they go 8 wins again, I mean, he'll get votes again for National Coach of the Year, because this team lost enough in McGloin, in Maudie, in Hodges, in Hill, that people don't expect them to do what they did last year because last year was a total surprise. Now, that being said, they got to focus on football a lot more in this preseason than they did the off-the-field stuff that they had to deal with a year ago. But you look at their schedule, Todd, and I'll tell you why this Syracuse game is so important, because they have Eastern Michigan next weekend, a team that went 2-10 last year. They need to be 2-0 after those two games because their last two non-conference games are against Central Florida and Kent State. And those two teams combined to go 21-7 last year and return most of their players. To go 4-0 through this non-conference, I think, is unrealistic, and that's why I think Penn State has to win this game against Syracuse.
Well, you know they're not going to overlook any non-conference opponents after last year's start against Ohio, so they'll be ready to go.
Great point.
Yep, Rick Pizzo of the Big Ten Network, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it. We'll check in back with you later in the season.
My pleasure, Todd. Enjoy opening weekend.
Okay, take care, Rick. Blue White Tailgate is coming right back.
Welcome back to Blue White Tailgate, presented by Rich Coast Coffee. All right, the topic that we have around the table is Johnny Manziel. So, does he play? Phil?
I don't think so.
Oh, I think he absolutely plays.
You think he absolutely plays?
Absolutely
You think it's going to be hard for them to prove cash?
Absolutely he play. If I'm Kevin Sumlin, I play him until they tell me no. Todd?
That's great. I love to hear you guys debate this one. This is a good topic. I think he's going to play. Yeah. Mainly because they've been so brazen about the whole thing all along. Now, is it a bad rule? I don't know. Maybe it is. But to flaunt it the way that it's been flaunted, and what an awful position that Manziel has put his school in. Yeah. Because if he did it, then obviously these guys are cooked for the season. If he didn't do it, they're still in a tough spot because they've got all this other people talking about it. So, I think most people believe he did do it, and so is he a stone-faced liar when they come to him and ask him if he did it?
What's your topic of the week?
Well, we wanted to talk about Johnny Manziel and about that, but and how that can affect a university and how that goes when you've got a situation. How do you make your decision before you've got any kind of evidence? We know a little bit about the NCAA, and so what do you do to play it safe, or what do you go out and you play them? So really, I guess the topic is the question: do you play them and play? I mean, do you not play them, play it safe, or do you just put them out there?
I play them until they tell me no, and on top of that, I look at Johnny and say, Johnny, it's time to grow up, babe. All right, AP Top 25. Let's get to it. Here's how it breaks down. Well, as I said, a familiar name at the top, Alabama. And then you get Ohio State and so forth. See Texas A&M there at 7. Okay, so now here's some of the key games opening weekend in college football coming up. Let's take a look at that. And you have Georgia, Clemson, LSU, TCU, Boise State, Washington, Alabama, Virginia Tech. So some interesting games around. Now let's go to the Big Ten. Here are the Big Ten games. Of course, Buffalo, Ohio State, everybody's talking about that. Wyoming, Nebraska, Northwestern Cal's interesting. Cal plays Ohio State a little bit later. All right, so now let's get to the keys. Phil, you get to go first.
Okay, I think balance is the #1 key offensively for Penn State in this game. Take some of the pressure off of Hackenberg and Ferguson. And then I think also on the offensive line, I think they have an opportunity to dominate on the offensive line. Jay Bromley is the only guy coming back. 3 new starters on the defensive line, a lot of inexperience there. And then defensively for Penn State, I think they got to have really solid, consistent play from the defensive tackles. Daquan Jones has to step up and be that #1 guy, as Gil Brandt said, eligible for the NFL draft.
The 7.5 minutes after halftime. Halftime adjustments I'm going to look for, and field goal percentage, which kicker can make more, because some of these young quarterbacks may stall.
Aarons, thank you for the set. I love this chair. I'm buying this chair. For Todd, Phil, I'm Steve. Thanks for joining us on Blue White Tailgate Show, presented by Rich Coast Coffee.